What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I am back from a video. This time once again, we're looking at NBA legend and his unbreakable records. And in today's video, we're going to look at Kobe Bryant. And to honor his career, we're going to look at 24 Kobe unbreakable records. So with that out of the way, let's get into the video. So first up in this video, for Kobe's unbreakable records, let's go back to the beginning of his playing career with the LA Lakers in the mid to late 90s. And for our first record, we get the fact that Kobe is the youngest starter in NBA history at 18 years old and 158 days. His first ever start came versus the Dallas Mavericks, where he scored 12 points in a Lakers victory. And up to this point in Kobe's career, he had played 40 games coming off the bench because head coach Del Harris didn't believe an 18-year-old could be effective in the NBA. Now fast forward 98 and Kobe was an all-star starter at age 19 and 170 days old. To this day, the youngest all-star starter in NBA history. And the fun fact about that 98 all-star game, Kobe going into the third quarter was the game's leading scorer. But in the fourth, George Karl, head coach of the West, benched Kobe for the entire 12-minute quarter, allowing Jordan from the All-Star Game MVP. And of course, that All-Star Game in New York, it's iconic as you had Jordan, Kobe, guys like Garnett, Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, tons of young stars combined with old vets who are proven as NBA champions. Now for our third Kobe record, with the fact that 97, he became the youngest player ever to score 20 plus points in a playoff game at the age of 18 and 250 days old. In this game, Kobe had 22 points on 54% shooting versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Once again, he came off the bench and was not a starter in this game, only playing 25 minutes. And pretty surprising to this day, there hasn't been an 18-year-old who scored 20 plus points in an NBA playoff game since Kobe in 97. Now moving on in the video, next up, we have the fact that Kobe has the most unassisted game-winning jump shots in NBA history at 6 total makes. No other player has more than 5 of those shots. And of course, Kobe was one of the best ISO scorers, and when it came to money time, you definitely wanted him having the ball. And speaking of money time in the fourth quarter, Kobe to this day has the most total fourth quarter points in a single season, scoring 715 in 2006. Now also in Kobe's career, he has the most 40-point halves on record at a total of 3. He scored 55 versus Toronto, 42 versus Washington, and 40 versus the Clippers. 2 of those coming during the 06 season. And speaking of 06, that 55-point half versus Toronto was the most points and a half on record in NBA history. And sticking with the 06 season, during the month of January, Kobe averaged 43.4 points per game, the highest points per game average for a guard in NBA history. During that month, he had 3 50-point games, 4 40-point games, 2 game winners. He made 62 straight free throws and averaged 14.8 points per game in the fourth quarter. And in total for his career, he had 10 50-point games, once again the most for a guard. And for 1 second, looking past scoring, in Kobe's career, he played in the tough Western Conference. And playing 20 years in that conference, he played plenty of 50-win teams as well as 60-win teams. And in total for his career, he beat 25 50-win teams, the most for a single player in NBA history. For context, Jordan had 20, and LeBron hasn't even reached 15. And looking at Kobe's best ever playoff runs, during the 01, 08, and 2010 season, he faced 4 50-win teams. And twice, his team won the championship, that being 01 as well as 2010. And speaking of the 2010s West, during that year, all 8 playoff teams won 50 plus games. That's how stacked Kobe's conference was, and how impressive it was that he won 5 championships playing in the West. Now for 1 second, let's get back to Kobe's scoring ability. Once again, looking at the 06 season, he had 81 points in that year, a career high, and the second most in NBA history, and the most ever for a guard. And as you guys know, in that game, his Lakers team needed every one of those single points. Now also looking at the defensive side of the ball, Kobe, made 12 all-defensive teams, to this day the most ever for a guard. And getting back to his scoring ability, during the 0-3 season, he had the most consecutive 40-point games for a guard at 9 total games. During that streak, he had 52 points, 51, 46, 44, 42, 41, and 43 times. And his Lakers team had a 7-2 record. And basically going hand in hand with that, Kobe in his career has the most consecutive 50-point games for a guard at 4 total games. That streak came during the very underrated 0-7 season, where Kobe in a 4-game stretch had 65 points, 60 points, and 50 points 2 times. His Lakers team was 4-0 during that stretch, with Kobe shooting 55% from the field. Now, sticking with the scoring ability in Kobe's career, he has a very impressive and underrated record, as from 08 to 2010, he had 3 straight playoff runs, scoring over 600 points. In NBA history, he's the only player ever to accomplish that feat. During the 08, 09, and 2010 playoffs, he was also the leading scorer in all those postseasons. And during 2017, during his last game, he still had a great outburst, having 60 total points, the most ever for a player over the age of 37, becoming the oldest player ever to reach that height when it came to scoring the basketball. And to add the cherry on top in Kobe's career, he scored 16,161 points in Staples. That is by far the most ever for a player in a single arena in their careers. And I think that record is going to stand for a really, really long time, as players not only change teams a lot, but arenas also change names as well as venues constantly in the modern NBA. As even Staples recently has been renamed Crypto.com Arena. Now, also in Kobe's career, for one of his better unbreakable records, he has the most points ever through 3 quarters. In that game versus Dallas, he scored 62, at the time a career high, and only a few games later, he would top that scoring 81 versus the Raptors. And once again, that was during the 06 season. Now, we're looking at Kobe's career in total. He had great longevity, playing 20 total years over 3 decades. And during that time period, he scored 33,643 points, the most ever for a guard in NBA history. And during the 2016 season, in Kobe's last game versus the Jazz, in that 4th quarter, he had 23 points, becoming the oldest player ever to score that many points in a 4th quarter. And as you guys know, in that game, Kobe, late in the 4th quarter, also added in the game-winning jump shot. Now, pulling a complete 180, during Kobe's younger days, at age 18, he became the youngest dunk champion of all time. Now, getting into our last 3 records, we have some of Kobe's better all-time feats. And first up, we have the fact that Kobe became the oldest player ever to single-handedly outscore his team. Once again, in his last game at age 37, he had 60 points, outscoring his team who only had 41 combined. And also a quick side note, Kobe in the second half of that game had 38 points on 50% shooting. His teammates in total only had 21 points. So once again, Kobe at age 37, he still had gas in the tank and went off for 60 in his final NBA game. And speaking of the big time moments, the iconic plays, Kobe at age 34 was the NBA leader in clutch scoring, scoring 156 total points. More than LeBron, more than KD, more than D Wade. Even at age 34, Kobe was still very good in the clutch, if not the best player in the clutch during that time period. And of course, the 2013 season, Kobe, he went off late in that year, hitting big time daggers seemingly every single game. And speaking of those daggers, the last unbreakable Kobe stat was the fact that in his career, he had 37 game-winning shots. Yes, 37 game-winning shots. And out of that, he had 8 total buzzer beaters, the second most ever. But that 37 number, I think, is going to stand for a while as the most total game winners for a player in their entire playing careers. So that right there is the end of the video, and that is part 3 of NBA Legends and their unbreakable records. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.